right, what's up, everybody? We are back with a brand new solo episode here today. Going to be a little bit of a shorter one. I think we're just going to do one topic. Probably talk about RFK. Today, he had his Health and Human Services confirmation hearing. It was pretty wild. I figured we'd talk a little bit about Bobby Kennedy. So, for you guys that don't know Bobby, he is RFK's son. His uncle was JFK. His dad was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan back in the 60s. And Bobby Kennedy has talked a little bit about it. He's said that he's not a vindictive person. He's talked about not wanting to always carry with him his father's assassination, but something happened a couple days ago that I still think is worth sharing. And if you're Bobby Kennedy, you gotta feel that, getting your uncle's and your dad's assassination documents released to the public would be a huge step. And that happened. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how RFK Jr. got that to happen. Probably some of the best political prowess we've seen since 2016. And obviously the election of 2016, Donald Trump, that was some of the best political maneuvering we've seen in this country in a really long time. But I think that RFK is underrated. I think that what he did in this 2024 election is nothing short of political genius. And he's really improved his political stock with a hand that was not very good if you're looking back into 2023. So I want to talk a little bit about RFK Jr., how he got to where he is now, and then we'll break into a little bit of how his hearing went, what some of these criminals and liars are saying about him, and all sorts of great stuff there. So let's get started with 2023. RFK Jr. announces that he is going to try and primary Joe Biden. RFK Jr. is a Kennedy, one of the most connected political families in United States history. And we all knew, we could see since 2020 that Joe Biden had some sort of dementia, that he was declining and he wasn't really the president. But Kennedy probably had even better insight just from being, a historical Democratic, family that he comes from. He's got connections. He's got insight into the Biden administration. And he knows that Joe Biden is not the president, hasn't been the president in a long time in 2023. He knows he's declining, and he decides to take a shot. So he decides he's going to announce that he's running for president as a Democrat. He's going to try and primary Joe Biden. Now, in 2023, none of these Democrats took him seriously. He was a popular guy because he took a lot of moderate stances. He had decided that immigration was going to be something he sided with Republicans on. He thought that building a wall was necessary, stemming off immigration was necessary. In the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, he sided with Israel, something that is more popular among Republicans than Democrats. And most importantly, he decided that Joe Biden shouldn't be president anymore, and which obviously more popular with Republicans than Democrats in 2023, but he took all of these stances, situating himself as a moderate in the Democratic Party and essentially ostracizing himself. So what the Democratic National Committee decided to do was that Joe Biden would not have to participate in this primary. They essentially canceled a lot of their primary elections. And I'm going to grab a quick statistic here. I want an exact number of how many primaries the Democrats canceled in 2024. I want to say it was 25. I'm not finding a good number right now, but I want to say it was half of them. And the other half, not even real fair primaries. So the Democratic National Committee, filled with Joe Biden loyalists, decided that they were going to make sure Joe Biden got the nomination. Remember, this is back in 2023. They did not want him to have to stand on a debate stage and debate another Democrat which, to be fair, most president incumbents will not go out and debate during the primaries. They won't do a whole lot of campaigning, not a whole lot of attacking their small primary challengers. And that's typically one of the advantages you get as the incumbent president is you're handed the nomination from your party. And what that does is it allows you to focus on raising and spending money in regards to the general election. It's a big advantage. While the other party has a bunch of candidates raising money, fighting it out, spending all that money, duking it out with each other, the incumbent gets to save all that money and focus on his opponents. So it could be a big advantage, but for Joe Biden, obviously that didn't work out. 2024 is super unique. But so Bobby Kennedy, he gets essentially hosed out of the primaries. Joe Biden, historically unpopular. So what they do is they cancel a lot of these primaries. He ends up not getting a lot of votes. The mainstream media decides that they're going to black him out. They're not going to report on him. They're not going to report on how popular he is. They don't have him on to talk about much. They are trying to ignore him because he starts to poll well. He starts polling in the double digits, actually, for support among Democrats. And Joe Biden, the DNC, everybody's trying to ignore this. And it has more to do with how unpopular Joe Biden is than how popular RFK is. But they snub him. And so what RFK decides to do, which good for him, he decides to run as a third party. He decides that the Democratic Party was not fair to him. They didn't give him a fair shake in the primaries. So he runs third party. And this is what Bernie Sanders should have done in 2016. When the DNC rigged the elections against him, instead of, growing some balls and standing up and, sticking it to Hillary Clinton, he endorsed her because he's spineless, and that's why his agenda will never be passed. He'll retire as an ineffectual senator, and he will just be lost to the history books as some old grumpy socialist because he didn't have the guts to stand up to his party like Donald Trump did when they didn't want him elected in 2016. A lot of similarities between Bernie Sanders and Trump in that way, that their parties didn't want him in 2016. But maybe that's something we'll dig into in another episode. They both had a lot of populist flavors there, but RFK really taps into some Democratic support. He starts getting double-digit numbers. And so the Joe Biden, essentially decrees that he is going to be the new nominee, or he's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party in 2024. DNC gets behind him, shut out RFK Jr. He launches a third-party bid, okay, which is really difficult in the United States. And he decides that he's not going to bow out. He's going to stand up to the establishment. So RFK Jr. still continues to get double-digit support, even in a general election. Okay, Democrats and Republicans are both supporting him. But as the election goes on, we're now in 2024, it starts being clear that RFK is taking more votes from Donald Trump than he is from Joe Biden. And this kind of makes sense because the biggest stances RFK Jr. is taking are more Republican issues. He's an immigration hawk. He is somebody who was very outspoken against the COVID policies. He's somebody who is really big into, natural health, eating better. He's not a economic conservative, but he doesn't make that the forefront of his issues. And he's pro-choice. So he's really got a mixed bag here. But the big issues of the election, obviously, the number one issue in the election was immigration, shortly followed by inflation. But both of those issues, RFK fell more on the right side. So he's taken more votes from Donald Trump. So we should just point out here, obviously, but back in 2023, this wasn't the popular position among Democrats, but RFK is right in primarying Biden. And eventually, we all know Joe Biden will not become the nominee. They will switch to Kamala Harris. Had the DNC decided that they were going to have a real primary system, RFK would have came in second place behind Joe Biden. Joe Biden ends up obviously relinquishing the nomination. It was his. But there is a scenario where RFK Jr. does get a fair shot in the primaries. He comes in second, and he could end up being the Democratic nominee. But he doesn't get a fair shake, so he ends up launching his third-party bid. And he's popular. He's stealing all these votes from Donald Trump, and he's still stealing some from Joe Biden, but more from Trump. And he decides that having a Joe Biden or Kamala Harris as our next president is more dangerous than whatever his small chances of actually, or not small chances, really zero chances of winning this election are. So he makes his, I think primarying Joe Biden is his first show of real political genius there. That was really smart. And he's going to come out on the right side of history for that. All these people that backed up Joe Biden, he's sharp as a tack, blah, 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 all that crap. They're going to be seen as the bad guys in history, the liars, and really the worst people. But he stood up against the establishment. He said no. That's his first move of political genius. Number two, the way he selects his issues makes him really popular. He's got good messaging, despite having his obvious troubles speaking. He's able to deliver his message effectively, becomes popular. That's number two, the best, the second good thing about RFK Jr. And the third one is this decision he makes that after Donald Trump gets shot, he sees all the momentum is this way. Joe Biden drops out and Kamala Harris is replaced as his nominee. RFK Jr. makes a really savvy political calculation. He knows that all the winds are shifting in Donald Trump's favor. He has very little chance of getting elected. And he's stealing more votes from Donald Trump. So if he can drop out of the race and endorse Donald Trump, he could trade his support in for a very real cabinet position. And because he is popular, because RFK Jr. went and delivered an effective message to the people, he has a lot of support. And his endorsement of Donald Trump means something. So that's exactly what he does. He gets concessions from Donald Trump to make him the Health and Human Services Secretary, which is one of his biggest issues, making America healthy again. And he drops out, endorses Donald Trump. And he also gets a second concession, which Donald Trump had talked about doing before, but RFK Jr., this is obviously a very personal issue to him. He gets Donald Trump to promise to release the documents on his uncle and his dad's assassinations. So you back up just a year, RFK Jr. was really a nobody. I mean, he was a Kennedy, but he had no real political clout of his own. He goes against his family, his party, everybody, makes these few savvy political moves, and all of a sudden, he's got the future president of the United States making a deal with him for a position he wants and some policies he likes. So fast forward to today. RFK Jr. is now going through his confirmation hearings to be the Health and Human Services Secretary. And the Democrats just let him have it. Because he's one of the worst things you could be to them. He's a heretic. He is a classical liberal, somebody who has been a Democrat his whole life, from the most famous Democrat dynasty probably in American history. And now he's taking a position in the Trump administration. I don't think that the left could imagine somebody worse. So they're just going to let him have it. And that's exactly what they do. They completely attack him unfairly, smear him, lie about him. They're going to vote against him. It's probably going to end up being a partisan vote. Fetterman has talked about maybe voting for RFK here, but it's going to be largely a partisan vote on the Senate floor. So let's play a little bit of video. You guys can hear how unhinged these senators are. The first, and it's the usual suspects. I mean, you can imagine it's Senator Sanders, Warren, Warnock. I mean, really just some of the biggest sellouts that you can imagine here. So let's start first with Elizabeth Warren. Here we go.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturers.
So what Senator Warren is saying there, and I know that's just a quick 27-second clip, but she essentially is trying to get him to pledge to drop his lawsuits against the vaccine manufacturers for vaccine injuries. Because if you remember from the COVID vax, if a person got injured by the vaccine, they could not sue. Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, they were all exempt from, or they were all immune to lawsuits over their vaccines. And the government had to do this, they say, because, then they just wouldn't release the vaccines if they could be sued for it. Well, because the vaccines weren't safe, the pharma companies knew if they released them, they would get the shit sued out of them, and then they'd go bankrupt. So what's the government do? They make the vaccine manufacturers exempt from lawsuits. And so what RFK does, right, he correctly calls out that Senator Warren is trying to get him to not sue vaccine manufacturers because, what do you know, Elizabeth Warren has taken over $5 million from the pharmaceutical industry, of course. So even afterwards, I'm going to play another clip for you here. She gives this interview where she clearly says, yeah, I'm worried he could bankrupt vaccine manufacturers and then we just won't have any more vaccines. But if the vaccines are safe and effective, why would they get sued? Why would they lose a lawsuit if nobody was going to get injured because they're so safe? Her argument doesn't make any sense, but here we go. Listen to her spell it out for you.
Money off his anti-vax position. Look, he says he won't go to work for drug companies because the American people have a right to know that the decisions made while he is Secretary of HHS are only for the good of the American people. And yet, he wants to keep a piece of the action on every one of these anti-vax lawsuits. And what that means potentially is, as Secretary of HHS, he can make those lawsuits a whole lot more profitable. In fact, he may have the opportunity to bankrupt the vaccine manufacturers, and then nobody gets vaccine.
Can you just imagine for a second how dumb you have to be to make the argument that the vaccines are safe and effective? At the same time, we can't allow you to sue them because they might go bankrupt. What? Why? What other industry gets to mandate, use the government to mandate their product? Then if it injures people, they're exempt from lawsuits, but they get to keep all the profits? Donate $5 million to people like Senator Warren, and then lambaste the people like RFK Jr. who were right about the COVID pandemic, who were right about the COVID vaccine? It's completely backwards. Upside. These people have no fucking shame, man. These people are Elizabeth Warren is one of the worst people in the Senate. I love this caption here. Who the hell's paying Pocahontas? For you guys that maybe don't know this little bit, she pretended to be Native American on some applications so that she could be a professor at Harvard or something like that. And so she does a DNA test to prove she's actually Native American. Turns out she's like 1,000th Native American, which is, less than the average American is. She's white, dude. She's 100% white, lied about her race. And that's why Trump and a bunch of people call her Pocahontas now. She's the worst. And then here's Senator Sanders here, who tries to pin down any health nominee to try and get them to claim that healthcare is a human right. And I just wanted to get this out there. Bobby Kennedy gives a good answer, okay? But the best answer to this question, is healthcare a human right, is there is no human right on earth that requires another person to labor for you. Okay? A human right is you have freedom of speech. You have freedom of religion. You have the right to bear arms. You have the right to due process. All of these rights that you have do not require you to go force somebody else to work for you for free. That does not even make sense. But here we go. Let me find this Bernie Sanders clip here.
Senator, I can't give you a yes or no answer to that question.
Healthcare a human right? Is healthcare a human right?
In the way that free speech is a human right,
Yeah.
I would say it's different, because with free speech doesn't cost anybody anything, but in healthcare, if you smoke cigarettes for 20 years and you get cancer, you are now taking from the pool.
Well,
and so are you guaranteed the same right, or is there also a duty?
I'm sorry. I'd love to talk for an hour with you. We got a few minutes left here. All right. Every other country on earth says healthcare, whether you're poor or rich, young or old, is a human right. I'm not hearing you say that. All right. You've talked about the drug companies, and maybe we...
Okay, so that is the gist of it there. RFK Jr. is right, number one. Just clearly, RFK Jr. is right there. He makes a good point that if something can't be a human right, okay, if you are forcing other people to work for you, and it doesn't even make any sense, okay? So what he says there, though, and he doesn't get a chance to follow this up, because I think he was about to make a really good point, is that if you are a smoker, okay, and you smoke for 20 years, you are going to eventually draw a disproportionate amount of money out of the public healthcare system, okay? So the next logical step that the government's going to take is they're going to say, okay, you can't smoke cigarettes anymore. We're in charge of your health care. You're costing the public too much money. No more cigarettes. Joe Biden already tried to do that. He tried to ban menthol cigarettes, okay? So that's the next step. Same with Bloomberg in New York, okay? He tried to tell you how big your soda could be, how much salt you could put on your food. All of these are the logical next step to a nanny state that decides they want to pay for your health care. So maybe Bernie Sanders is well-intentioned. Maybe he's not. I don't know how you could possibly look at everything the government has done to the healthcare system and say, you know what, this system, you know what our healthcare system's missing is more government. We need more regulation, more red tape, more bullshit, more socialism. That'll make everything better. It's insane, man. I don't know how these people even wake up in the morning and get themselves ready to just lie. And the worst part of all of this really is that RFK Jr. was right about the COVID vaccine, okay? That's why during his confirmation hearing today, all they wanted to talk about is what was happening with measles in Samoa in 1980 and what some book that RFK had written and some claim he had made here and there, because they can't argue about the COVID vaccine because they were wrong and they lied to you and they helped Pfizer scam you. Okay? They mandated you take these vaccines. Okay? They tried to make OSHA force 80 million Americans to take this vaccine. And then they exempted the company from any legal liability because the companies knew without that protection, without the legal exemptions, people would be hurt by this vaccine. They would sue. They would win. And these pharmaceutical companies could go bankrupt. So what's the free market solution is don't put out a fucking vaccine that can hurt people. Okay? Well, that's not good enough for the government. They needed the vaccine. Okay? Because the reason they need it is because they're all paid off. Okay? What's it? Warren, I said again, $5 million from these pharmaceutical companies. Of course they exempted them. The politicians get rich from Pfizer. And we all know this. We're beating a dead horse here. But the point is, RFK Jr. was right about all of this, okay? And the senators, the politicians, they were wrong. And they still just have the gumption to sit there and chastise him and look down their noses at him like he's some crackpot and they were right the whole time. When they're the fucking liars and everybody knows it. These people are fucking crazy, man. How we still allow these people to be in charge, people like Sanders and Warren, all these just hacks, it's beyond me. Whatever the people of Vermont are doing, man, get your fucking shit together. And this is coming from a Californian, okay? I mean, I understand the irony there, okay? Anyways, let's wrap this thing up with a just quick summary here. Okay, my hot take: RFK Jr. This was probably the greatest political maneuvering, second only to Donald Trump of this century, and probably in living memory. This was really impressive. He goes from nobody. Okay, he's not even the most popular. I should say he doesn't even have the most political clout in his family pre-2023. Okay, he's got a couple cousins that are ambassadors, people in high places here and there. Okay, he's not even top in his family. Okay, he comes out of nowhere, tries primarying Joe Biden. Obviously, he's right. Joe Biden could not stand up to Donald Trump and the race for the presidency. Okay, so he's right. He picks his issues well, delivers his message, becomes popular. Awesome. Okay. Then after Donald Trump gets shot, all the momentum's on his side. They convict him. They weaponize the justice system against him. All it does is make him more popular. RFK Jr., he sees the writing on the wall. Kamala Harris doesn't stand a chance, and he sees he's taking votes from Donald Trump, and now he's got a real opportunity. So he sides with Donald Trump, throws his lot in, and trades his influence and endorsement for a position in Donald Trump's administration. The best position, the number one position RFK Jr. wanted, this HHS secretary, super influential, on the heels of the biggest pandemic in our country's history. He's able to negotiate for this spot. Plus, he gets the documents released on the most controversial assassination in history, his uncle, okay? And then on top of that, he gets all the documents released from the assassination of his dad. I mean, he really comes through for his family here, for his late dad, for his late uncle. I mean, I think he does him really proud. I mean, this is some real political savvy. And his family undermines him the whole way. His cousin, the ambassador, just smearing him online, which is disgusting shit, man. I mean, could you imagine being a hack for the government that killed your uncles if you're this ambassador woman? I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Talk about no shame, but he stands up anyways. Political genius here. He plays it as well as he can. He's probably going to get confirmed to be the next Health and Human Services Secretary. I agree with a lot of the shit that he says. Not all of it. I mean, nobody agrees with everything that this guy says. He's such a maverick. I mean, I get that. He's not perfect. None of us are. But man, is he looking in the right direction. Our food's poisoning us, man. We are not healthy, and it's not because we don't take enough drugs. As much as Pfizer would love you to believe that you just need more pills to be healthier, what we really need is healthier food, a healthier diet. I mean, shit, it wasn't that long ago that the food pyramid was being pushed in front of all these kids. The shit was just lies. And hopefully that bullshit's going to be over. I think he's going to be I hope he gets confirmed. I think he'll be good. We don't have purity tests here in the Republican Party. I know he's pro-choice. I don't care. It's fine. He's not going to be in charge of all the different state policies on abortion. Okay? Again, no purity tests. Donald Trump donated to Democrats. Donald Trump was a Democrat, okay? So was RFK Jr. That's all right. We don't hold that against people. he's shown real political savvy, and I'm curious to follow him, see how he does. I hope he does well. All right, that's a wrap, guys. Talk to you later.